My husband left me for my cousin, leaving me with the kids, but now he wants to come back, and I have a surprise for him. My name is Jessica, I'm 34, and I'm about to tell you the kind of story that makes you wonder how reality didn't just collapse in on itself. Imagine this. After 12 years of marriage, my husband Brad, who by the way is 36 and should know better, dumps me for none other than my 32-year-old cousin, Lindsay. Yes, you heard that right. Not some stranger or random fling, but my own flesh and blood cousin. The same cousin who spent every Christmas grinning at me from across the dinner table, every Thanksgiving asking to borrow my clothes, and every 4th of July pretending she wasn't low-key jealous of my potato salad. This nuclear disaster unfolded a year ago over breakfast. There we were, me sipping coffee and the kids giggling over their cereal, when Brad, in his infinite wisdom, decided that toast and eggs were the perfect backdrop for a life-ruining announcement. "I'm leaving," he said, with all the charisma of a wet paper towel. "Lindsay and I just understand each other in ways you and I don't." Excuse me? Understand each other? Yeah. Maybe she understood how to play Call of Duty with him while I was the one running on 2 hours of sleep, because Sophie, our 4-year-old, decided 2 a.m. was the perfect time to cry about monsters. Oh, and don't forget Emma, 10, and Kyle, 8, who have a talent for needing help with math homework the moment I step into the shower. Meanwhile, Brad was out there having a spiritual connection with Lindsay over cheap wine and Netflix. At first, I didn't even feel anger. I was just frozen. Like, how do you even process that level of betrayal? It wasn't until I saw the suitcase he had packed before telling me, classy, right? That it hit me. The rage came later, specifically when Lindsay had the audacity to post a cryptic Instagram story about how love is unexpected but beautiful. Sure, Lindsay, tell that to my kids when they ask why daddy doesn't come home anymore. Brad disappeared after that. Poof. Gone, like a magician's rabbit, but without the charm. No child support, no weekend visits, no phone calls to check if the kids still remembered him. Meanwhile, Lindsay, in true pick-me fashion, started sending me passive-aggressive texts about how hard it was being in a relationship with a man so broken by guilt. Guilt? Please. Brad wouldn't know guilt if it hit him with a frying pan, and believe me, I fantasized about being that frying pan more than once. 8 months later, just when I thought the universe had decided to give me a break, guess who showed up on my doorstep? Brad. Only this time, he wasn't the smug, overconfident man who left me. No, he looked like someone had dragged him through the dirt and left him out to dry. "Jess," he started, voice all shaky. "I made a mistake. Lindsay kicked me out. I have nowhere else to go." Oh, honey, nowhere else to go? Try the couch at the nearest Motel 6. But did I say that? Nope. I smiled, like the gracious, composed woman I totally am, and said, "Of course, Brad. Come in, stay for dinner." The whole time my brain was already crafting Plan Revenge, Ultimate Edition. See, Brad thought he was walking back into the life of the old Jessica, the one who used to excuse his every misstep because he means well. But that Jessica, she was gone, dead and buried under piles of juice-stained laundry and years of resentment. The new Jessica had a spine, a lawyer on speed dial, and a vendetta to make this man regret every bad decision he'd ever made. Brad had no idea the storm that was coming, and honestly, I was going to enjoy every second of it. When Brad waltzed back into my life, he turned on the charm like we were living in some second-rate rom-com. He was all apologies and big declarations, trying to sell me on this shiny new image of himself. "I was a fool to leave you, Jess," he said, eyes wide like some cartoon prince. "I want to be a better dad." "Oh, really? You mean that dad? The one who forgot Emma's birthday because he was too busy finding himself on a spiritual retreat?" Spoiler, Lindsay and her family's lake house were a lot more central to his journey. "But sure, Brad, you're a new man, totally reformed. Let's give you a gold star and a fresh start." I didn't buy a single word of it, of course, but I played along, nodding and smiling like he'd just reinvented the wheel. Inside, I was practically bursting out laughing. Watching him try to fit back into family life was like watching someone try to jam a square peg into a round hole. Awkward, painful, and absolutely doomed to fail. Meanwhile, Lindsay was not taking her downgrade from other woman to rejected ex very well. She started blowing up Brad's phone with texts that ranged from embarrassing to downright terrifying. "Brad, I miss you so much, baby," she wrote, followed by, "I can't believe you chose her over me. I'll never forgive you. Lindsay, girl, you sound like a rejected soap opera villain. Maybe try some self-respect next time." And here's the kicker. Brad, genius that he is, still had the same phone password he'd used since we got married. So, naturally, I found those messages faster than Emma can find the hidden candy stash. Did I confront him about it? Nope. Confronting Brad would have been like yelling at a toddler who just colored on the walls. It wouldn't change a thing. And honestly, it wasn't worth the energy. Instead, I did what any self-respecting woman in my position would do. I started planning. See, Brad's big reunion with the kids was as fake as his sudden interest in family dinners. He was desperate, jobless, and probably hadn't had a decent meal in weeks. Lindsay's family cash flow must have dried up, and Brad, being Brad, had come crawling back to the last person willing to deal with his nonsense. But here's the thing. I didn't want Brad back. Oh no. I wanted him to realize exactly what he'd lost. Not because I cared what he thought, but because it was time for him to feel the burn of his own bad decisions. Step 1, let him think he was back in control. Step 2, make sure he never saw the fallout coming. Brad might have thought he was getting a second chance, but what he was really getting was front row seats to his own undoing. And me, I was going to enjoy every minute of it. Brad's attempts to fit back into our lives were pathetic. He tried helping with the kids' homework, but Emma was old enough to see through his act. She asked, "Why is Dad here? Is he leaving again?" I hugged her, telling her everything would be fine. And it would, but not for Brad. Lindsay escalated her antics, even showing up at the kids' soccer practice to glare at me from across the field. She had no idea I'd already spoken to my lawyer and put certain papers in motion. Brad, oblivious to my plotting, tried to act like the good guy, offering to help with bills. Too bad his idea of help was handing me the cash Lindsay must have given him before kicking him out. One night, when Brad was asleep on the couch, I sent Lindsay a text from his phone. It said, "We need to talk. Come by tomorrow." Sure enough, she showed up, looking desperate. Brad stumbled out of the house as Lindsay unleashed a screaming match on the lawn, accusing him of leading her on. The neighbors were treated to quite the performance, with Lindsay throwing her purse at him and Brad yelling, "You ruined my life!" Inside I was laughing. Outside, I played the shocked, innocent wife. "Lindsay, how could you do this to me?" I said, faking tears. "Haven't you hurt our family enough?" The showdown came 2 weeks later. I filed for divorce and presented Brad with an airtight custody agreement. He'd been so busy scrambling to fix his train wreck with Lindsay that he hadn't noticed the legal documents piling up. Lindsay, bless her little conniving heart, had told me just enough about their financial misadventures to help my case. The kicker? I had secretly recorded Brad bad-mouthing me to the kids and Lindsay calling me an unfit mother in one of her drunken voicemails. The court didn't like that. They ruled in my favor, granting me full custody and a significant chunk of what little Brad had left. The final cherry on top came at our last court appearance. As we left, Lindsay showed up in the hallway, tears streaming down her face, screaming at Brad for ruining both their lives. I walked past them, holding Emma's hand, and whispered just loud enough for them to hear, "Enjoy your freedom, Brad. I know I will." Now, I've moved on. The kids and I are thriving. Brad and Lindsay, who knows? But if karma is half as ruthless as I am, they're probably as miserable as they deserve to be. And that, my friends, is what you call poetic justice.